So this is a tutorial for my blog, Plastic is Magic. This is set up because Gary asked for some tutorials. Sorry about the voice, I'm getting over a cold. Because he saw things on my blog and on my Facebook account kind of look like this. It's this transparent colored little tiki dude, transparent faced sort of skull dude with a polymer clay hood. Things like this mermaid I sculpted in polymer clay and then painted the colors instead of on her on the front. I painted them on the back, you see, so that from different angles it looks like either she's clear or she's got, you know, different colorful scales and skin and hair going on. Or like this thing I made, which is sort of my own little reinvention of a tiki, but also it's made so that it can use a standard lighting LED unit, so you can wander around with your own little tiki lamp on your chest. The way I did this and many other things was I used polymer clay to sculpt the object, and I baked it in a regular oven, you know, heat cured it, then did a little carving on it to make it a little bit better refined, plastic coated it using clear plastic paint or varnish, whatever you like to call it, and sprayed that on, and basically then made a silicone mold and poured this guy in there, so some clear epoxy resin with some dye in it, some red dye I got from Hastings Plastic in Santa Monica. This is the kind of casting material, the clear acrylic, or excuse me, the clear epoxy from Easy Cast. I've had the most success with this. Likewise, the molds, which we'll get to later in another tutorial, I did with Umu 30, which is a smooth-on product. Smooth-on. And it's available in most art supply stores, like, well, I'll talk about those later too. But here's the big thing. We start with a polymer clay, like Fimo, or here's a Fimo Classic. This is the black they make, and I've done a bunch of stuff with this. It's fairly thick. You need to condition it by kneading it. Here's also something made by Sculpey called Primo. You don't want to get the stuff that's called soft, because that will not hold your designs very well. Because you're going to want to work up, I mean, it's good to work with your fingers, but you're going to want to work up to using actual sculpting tools on the polymer clay. And, you know, down even to, say, fine instruments where, like these points, with little balls on the end of them for making little channels, little detail. You really want to get the stuff that's either called classic, or that's basically just called the general polymer clay. Like I said, don't go to soft. Fimo has a thing called soft and a thing called effects. Effects polymer clay is like this blue sparkly stuff. If you can see, there's sparkles in this. It's kind of hard with the way the lighting's working. This is like upholstery from the 50s. This is like a sort of sparkly car upholstery kind of material. But really what we're trying to get to is something that approximates this as a final product, or at the very least an intermediate product. And that'll be, what'll happen is you'll make something that is polymer clay. You make a mold of it from this liquid silicone rubber, and then once that is cured, you'll pour in your resin with a dye in it or any other intermediate stuff. This actually has some mica powder in it too, so it's a little more opaque. You can't see straight through it, but it refracts all sorts of really cool light. That's kind of like why I call my blog Plastic is Magic, because I think it feels like magic when you're able to play with the stuff and make really cool little sort of candy colored stuff like this pen did. I mean, the light goes through it and it reflects on it. Isn't that pretty? But you can see, you know, this is something I'm making a new mold on too. It's a roller derby kind of metal. It's got a skate with some wings, made with the Fimo Classic. And you can see how shiny it is. That's because I used this gloss spray paint on it, basically. Any number of little techniques you can do to get where you want. For instance, I carved this little woman, this little bride, in polymer clay, standing in this sort of doorway window with her bouquet. You see his little ghost face on top. And what I did was, I did that in polymer clay, then I did it in resin, so you can actually light it from behind and it'll look like a very special effecty kind of crazy thing. Look at that. I also put on some glow-in-the-dark polymer clay on the back, made it fit this LED unit, so when you turn it off, it actually continues to glow. I don't know if you can see that too well. It gives this really cool, sickly green glow. So this is my idea. Plastic is magic. That's what my blog's called. That's my idea. Gary asked for a tutorial, so in the next phase, after the dance break, I'm going to talk about the techniques of using this polymer clay, how much you should use to get a particular size. Like, this is pretty big. This is for someone who wants to be looked at, you know, on the chest. It's not like a very small charm. You can make those too in polymer clay and make molds and do those with resin, but they tend to be very brittle. And you want something, you know, if you're going to show something off with this particular kind of technique, you're going to want it to be bigger than a quarter. It shouldn't be like a St. Christopher medal or something small like that. Anyway, it's time for that dance break.